Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to hope that my sound is working okay. I've been having a little bit of issues with my microphone set today. I've switched microphone sets, so let me know in the comments to make sure you guys can hear me, or if you can't, I guess that's usually when you'll tell me is when you can't hear me, right? Welcome. I hope everybody had a beautiful weekend. The weekend here in Northern Nevada was crazy. Our winds were horrible this weekend. For us in Northern Nevada, wind is a normal thing. I mean, but it gets old and it's been like this for a while. But just driving through my neighborhood last night, there was a bunch of trees blowing down and fences blowing down and dogs running around. It just pretty normal. Oh, look at that. I lost an earring. Nope, it's still there. I thought I did. But it's pretty normal for us, but it's still doesn't, it's not fun. So let me know you're here this morning. Say good morning. I love to know who's here and where you're from, between YouTube and all over the place that we're streaming. Let us know where you're watching from. So Friday was my birthday, and it's interesting what I'm speaking about today with you guys, on ambiguous loss. Um, Birthdays in my family are a huge thing. We actually celebrate a birthday, do just a day for a birthday. And one of the things we do with our children, and we've always done, and I still do it with my children, even though they're grown, is we celebrate you, right? It's more of a celebration of you are here, you're amazing. This week is all about you. So when I say we do a birthday week, we don't just get presents every day or anything like that. We do something to celebrate you every day. So I might make my breakfast one morning. The next day it'll be their favorite game together. But there's something every day for 7 days that happens very intentionally to honor who you are, right? So what is ambiguous loss? If you guys looked at the title for this, I titled today's discussion Underestimating Ambiguous Loss. And it's something I really have been dealing with a lot in my own personal life. It's something, anytime I'm like crazy, that's just what I do. I just start studying, seeing why am I feeling this? And everybody knows, I've gone through a huge loss. But there's something else that has just been nagging at me. And I find these thoughts that keep going through my head. And one of the things that just keeps playing over and over and over in my mind is I've lost so much. And when I stop to analyze that thought, I ask myself, well, yeah, you lost your husband. Yes. So what else? But when I'm thinking it, that doesn't feel like it's it. It feels, and my birthday was a big, I think, piece of that, where when you lose somebody like what we've lost, every single event for that next year is that first milestone without that person. And all the things just start really eating at you. It's like you lose over and over and over again, right? So one of the weirdest things that got to me this weekend was, um, there were two things. It's so bizarre, right? Of all the things. Okay, I am so sorry. I'm not sure if it's me. I'm having huge internet problems in our whole city, actually, not just here, but our whole city seems to be having some major internet problems right now. But okay, I am back, but I might actually, if this keeps up, I will switch to my hotspot for you guys. I am so sorry. But if will you guys let me know in the comments, my staff, am I flashing in and out or am I staying on? 'Cause my screen keeps blacking out and it looks like I keep losing internet. So just let me know. I'm so sorry, you guys, about this. But this is a very important topic. So I wish this wasn't happening right now because one of the things that everybody keeps it is okay, it keeps sticking. Okay, thanks, Anna. Um, Whenever people talk to me though, they come to me and they say things like, I'm so upset about this and this, but who am I to be upset about anything when you're dealing with the loss of your husband, right? And I've noticed over the last year, people really downplay their own losses. They downplay their own struggles because of where I am in my life. And I have to say, as somebody who has studied psychology my entire life, that isn't healthy. Your loss is huge too. And my loss does not make your loss any smaller. It doesn't downplay your loss. And for you, and we all do this, right? Like I mean, I find myself doing this all the time too. We downplay our own losses because we're always comparing. Somebody has it worse somewhere else. Somebody this, somebody that. Who am I to complain? Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're not the one experiencing that. Your experience is absolutely legitimate. So going back to my story before I lost connection, the loss that really got to me this weekend was over tea. It was over tea. My husband has every year he buys me a special tea, right? And usually there's one in particular that I love that actually is grown in Fairbanks, Alaska, and he has it shipped out from Fairbanks every year. And I get my tea from Fairbanks, and it is amazing. I'm a big tea drinker. I'm very, very picky about tea. I like tea leaves. I don't use tea bags. And there's only very specific brands I'll drink and types. And so tea is a big deal. I love basically the only tea that I will always like across the board is English brown. Get messed up. But loose leaf tea is my thing. I lost you guys. I'm sorry, guys. Again, I'm going to actually switch over. Let me switch over live. So I am going to try and go into my hotspot. There we go. So hopefully now I'll stop losing connection. But basically, I didn't get tea for my birthday. And it was my first birthday in years that I didn't get tea. And it really actually made me sad. And I just thought to myself, tea. Am I really sad over tea? This is ridiculous. I can just buy my own tea, right? I hadn't thought about it before. If I realized it would have triggered me, I probably would have bought it before. But it's those little ambiguous losses, right? It really wasn't about the tea. It was more about the tradition is gone. It's done, right? With my husband's passing, he's not here for my birthdays anymore. It's my first birthday experiencing it without him. So it's all these little things that just start eating away at you, and it is just it's really difficult. It is very difficult to navigate sometimes. There's other things though that we don't realize with ambiguous loss that really happens to us, and we tend to downplay our losses because of the big ones, right? Somebody loses a child, somebody loses their spouse, somebody loses their house. There's these huge losses, and so we tend to downplay our smaller losses, which are just as important at the end of the day to you. Yes, some of them are so much harder to deal with. Some of them are more emotionally tolling. Some of them do take a lifetime to really just navigate and get over and deal with, and we never ever get over them, right? But these little ambiguous losses, they stack and they stack and they stack and they stack. And as a society, we've taught ourselves not to put value into them. We've taught ourselves to feel like I don't have a right to feel bad because that lady there, she lost her husband. So who am I to be sad over my dog? Right. And I bring up dog because I lost a dog a couple years ago, and it was one of the most painful experiences of my life. And it was funny because as my husband, I knew he was dying. I knew the week he was dying that he was going to, this was it. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. I knew within a month, like that once we hit that 1 month period, I knew he wouldn't make it till the end of July and of last year. And I just kept thinking, which made me feel so guilty. I just kept thinking about the pain I felt when I lost my dog. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel that pain again. It was horrible. It was horrific. And I knew this was going to be more painful, but that's what kept coming into my mind. And then I would give myself guilt feeling like, I can't believe you're thinking about Jack when it's your husband you're losing. I can't believe this is what's going through your mind, right? And I would beat myself up for it. But why? I mean, now in retrospect, a year later, I'm literally a year from that time. Why was I beating myself up for it? Losing my dog was one of the most painful experiences of my life. It was. I was actually visiting my son at college, and we got a call that another dog had broken into our backyard and got into my little pug. And he was my favorite dog of all time ever. It hurt so bad. I got a phone call while I was in Oregon that he died while I was in Oregon. And I just, it was devastating. I did not think I was going to come home and not have my baby there. I mean, this dog, you guys, if you only knew, he was my child. He was like a child to me. And it was so painful. And I kept thinking right before Ron passed away about how painful that was. And I would get mad because those are those ambiguous losses, right? We don't put value into them. Another ambiguous loss that I've experienced that was extremely painful for me was when I got diagnosed with narcolepsy. I've been, I was always very proud of my brain. That's my thing. I'm really smart, and I knew it my entire life, right? I'm very smart. I'm quick, I'm resilient, I'm tough. I am tough. And that was the other thing. There's two things that I had to deal with on the loss of being diagnosed with narcolepsy was it slows your brain down. I have to take time to rest. The other thing is my resilience. I've shown up to work when I had a job with IVs in my arm. I literally worked full 8-hour days carrying around a trash can to throw up into and an IV taped to my body, right? I'm tough. And now I have a disease that slows me down. It slows my thinking, forces me to take naps every day. And I'm not tough anymore. Not nearly as tough as I used to be, right? I'm not going to work anymore with IVs. Now I do understand how unhealthy that was. I understand how toughing it out like I used to was not healthy. I got my tonsils taken out and had nose reconstructive surgery and went to work 3 days later. That is not healthy, right? But I was very proud of the fact that I was that tough, that it didn't matter how much pain I was in, how much suffering I was feeling. I showed up and I just basically pushed through and worked anyway, right? It was something I was very proud of. My ability to think fast, all of that. As somebody, my education background is in neuropsychology. Okay. I knew when I was diagnosed with a neurological disease, I knew exactly what that meant for me. I knew what I was losing. I knew I was losing a couple of the things that I was most proud of myself for, right? That is another ambiguous loss. People understand when you get sick that you're sick. Oh, that, but it's those little things that we start feeling guilty for, losing that part of who I was. And I literally, at that time of my life, had to write a letter of goodbye to the old me and welcoming the new me. And it was such a hard time that I literally wrote a letter saying goodbye to who I used to be before the narcolepsy, right? And and for those of you guys who know me more, yes, I used to be even more. I worked more than I do now. I did more than I do now. I was a lot more like just on the fly, go, go, go. And I really had to pull back. Now I see it as a blessing in disguise because it wasn't healthy. The life I was living was not healthy at all. And so the narcolepsy, I feel like, is God's way of forcing me to really just slow down, relax, and be healthy. So Anna says, I've been struggling with the loss of our school. Yes. Hitting a year mark on Facebook memories keeps popping up. I miss them. Yes. Yes. I totally losing things like that. That was something I was discussing with a friend this weekend when we were talking about ambiguous loss. My first childcare center, I opened up, had it built. I was involved in the floor plan. Everything was my baby, right? But when Zooin, which is my baby today, came on the market, Zooin Around's budget was 3 times what mine was to build. It is twice the size, twice the capacity, state of the art, everything, right? Mine was built on a very conservative budget. Zooin was built on a sky is the limit budget. When it came on the market and I was able to take it over, I had to close my center down to take over Zooin. And it seems to a lot of people like, oh my gosh, it's awesome. You doubled in size, this and that. But it was still a loss. I had to say goodbye to the center I built, my baby, right? Another huge loss in my life that I've had was dropping my son off at college. When he moved away for the 3 years of college, I cannot even begin to tell you how painful that was. For those of you who've been through it, you know, my son went to college 9 hours away. That day that we had to drive away was huge. Dropping him off at school that day and having to drive home 9 hours and knowing he was 9 hours away from me. I cried for 3 straight days. I slept in his bed. It's another loss. Everybody's so excited, like, wow, your son got a full ride scholarship. You must be just over the moon with happiness and excitement. And like, yes, there's an and to that though, right? And that is I keep saying this, but biggest lesson I've learned in the last year is to feel comfortable with the ands in your life. Okay. I was very proud of my son, very excited for dropping him off at college. But I was also so sad that my baby was gone. It was one of the most painful experiences of my life. I would have to say that day that I had to drive away was the second most painful day of my life, driving away the day I dropped my son off for college. Second most painful day of my life. And it's that and, right? And a lot of times in our society, people think that it has to be this or this. You're either excited or you're not. And back then, when I was so heartbroken over my son going to college, everybody was like, how can you be upset about this? He got a full ride scholarship to an amazing college. He's got, all of these things. Why are you sad? This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't because I'm allowed to have an and. I'm allowed to have an and. I can be sad to see my son not living at home and being grown up, right? And at the same time, I can be thrilled and happy because this is paving the way for the rest of his life, right? I can be excited for my future and scared because it's not the future I thought I was going to live. You can feel the absolute pain of the loss. Like Anna, your pain that you're talking about losing your school. I know that was huge for you. I know you and I talked through that and it was huge and so painful. Anna, for example, could compare herself to me and she could say, well, I might have just lost my school, but at least I didn't lose my husband, right? But honestly, does it matter? It doesn't matter. Anna can be sad for losing her school and have a ton of pain every time she sees those Facebook memories come up. And I can be sad too. What I lost does not make Anna's loss any less huge and important, right? It and we really shouldn't even compare. But we do this all the time. And the more and more I talk to people, the more I hear it. Like, I mean, let's say, for example, Anna was the one who called me and said, I'm really struggling, but who am I to complain because you lost your husband, right? That's not healthy. And we shouldn't compare our one loss to another. And I catch myself doing it all the time as well. I know I met somebody a couple months ago that lost a husband and her child in a car accident. And the first thing that went through my mind is, gosh, who am I to complain? I only lost my husband. I don't lose my kid too. But it's not healthy. It doesn't downplay. One experience doesn't make another less important or less impactful. And a lot of times, even though like Anna's loss is a big one too, right? Losing your business that you put so much money into, you put so much savings. I know Anna did a lot for, and it's still affecting her to this day. I know from when we talked, what Anna put into that business is probably still affecting her today. And the way she lost her school was awful. It just, some people are not good people in this world and just lost it out of something really, really tragic. But, that's another big loss that we're so obvious about. But what about when a child leaves your center and moves on? What about when a teacher leaves you and moves on? Those are ambiguous losses that we often don't allow ourselves to feel because we don't feel like it's worthy of our time, like something as huge as losing your childcare center or as losing your husband or as losing your child, right? And you have this sadness because yeah, you lost an employee you had a connection with and they're gone now, but who am I to complain because this person lost her school? At least I still have my whole school, right? Really get out of the habit of comparing yourself to others. Your loss is still important. These ambiguous losses still hurt. They still hurt. And I realized over the last month or two where this thought keeps going through my mind, I've lost so much. And when I say that to myself, I know I'm not just talking about my husband, right? I just keep thinking to myself, I've just lost so much. I can't lose one more thing. That's the thought that keeps going through my head. And when I'm thinking about it, like, okay, well, what am I afraid to lose? What is it I'm afraid to lose? What is it I'm afraid I've already lost? And when I analyzed it, I realized that all these ambiguous losses that I've had have just stacked up and stacked up and stacked up and stacked up, right? Losing the piece of me that I loved to narcolepsy, losing my dog, losing that center I once upon a time built, losing some amazing staff that I truly cared about for a long time, losing the fact that I'm not going to get tea from Alaska for my birthday anymore. That seems silly, right? But it still hurts. And they stack and they stack and they stack and they stack. And it's big. It's not just these big losses that are painful and hard for us to deal with. And we need to start acknowledging these ambiguous losses. We need to give ourselves that space and allow ourselves that time to grieve those ambiguous losses too. It's not just the big ones that we can be okay with. And COVID has taken a lot from us. It has taken a lot, and it's okay to grieve that. The one thing I do have to end with is just make sure you put an expiration date on that grief. I think we can very easily allow it to become us, right? We can find ourselves so trapped in that grief that we don't move past it. We don't move on. And 10 years down the road, we're still in that space. When my husband first died, one of the scariest things that happened to me was another widow messaged me. And she said, I'm so sorry, but this is what your life is going to look like. And she, 8 years had gone by since she had lost her husband. And she was still in that really dark place, still just living a life on her own, still like talking about how every morning she remembers missing this, and this, right? And it was so scary to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't allow this. I can't allow this for myself. I cannot allow myself to still be in this much grief 8 years from now. And I knew I can't allow myself to be here a year from now, because if I do, I will lose everything. Right. So one of the things I do is I really allow myself a reasonable time to really grieve. And grief comes in waves. It doesn't mean it's gone forever, right? I mean, I could be doing great today. Tomorrow I'm going to go down. Today it's like this, right? And that's okay. It's okay. As long as you're not always staying in that slump, right? You've got to make sure that you're coming in and out at least. I mean, for something huge like what I've gone through, some of the things we just need to move on and let go, right? We've got to move on from it. Every now and then I see Jack's picture and I still get upset about it, but I'm not going to let it ruin a day, right? My narcolepsy, I don't get sad about that at all anymore. I don't even care anymore. I'm actually grateful to have narcolepsy now, because it does, believe it's improved my quality of life. It's really forced me to slow down and take care of myself. So that's a good example of grief that I felt once, that I allowed myself to feel and I needed to feel. And at one point I did let it take over and I did let it control me. But now that I've put a stop to that, it's actually enhanced and made my life better, right? So just make sure that you're not allowing the grief to have more room in your life than it deserves. Don't let it take up too much of your life. It's really, it can be really detrimental. So that's my last piece to you. Just figure out a reasonable time and put an expiration date. I literally sometimes put a date on my calendar. Literally, will say, okay, I'm going to allow myself to throw a fit, feel everything I need to feel, just cry, and just really let this consume me. But by this date, at this time, I need to move on. And that's what I had to do when my son went to college. I literally gave myself 3 days just to feel everything. I slept in his bed. I smelled his clothes. I did all the things, which was pretty gross considering he was an 18-year-old boy. But now that I think about it, but Monday morning, I had to show up for work. And yes, I was still sad, but I also told myself, okay, now it's time. Let's do the work and move on, right? This is part of life. So feel the feelings. Don't suppress them. That is the worst thing you can do, because I promise you, they will come out. They will come out. You cannot suppress. They will come out some way or another. Just one other quick story. I actually had some struggles over the years too with vomiting. Vomiting became just pretty normal for me. And through therapy, I found out that I had suppressed crying for so many years. I wouldn't allow myself to cry because I thought I had to be tough, right? I thought I had to be tough, and people who are tough don't cry. And there was actually a period of a few years that I couldn't cry. Even when I knew I needed to, I couldn't. So I started vomiting all the time. And it wasn't like forced, it just happened. I would get sick and I would vomit. And my therapist ended up telling me that the vomiting is actually a result of getting the emotion out. It has to come out one way or another. And since I had taught myself how to suppress the tears, that's what was happening. It was coming out. And she basically said, nobody can tell you not to vomit, but people will say, don't cry. It's okay. Don't cry. Right. So, PSA, don't tell your kids at the centers not to cry, because that's what we're doing. Right. I grew up, don't cry. Don't cry. It's okay. Don't cry. And then later on in my life, I have problems with stomach because I've taught myself not to cry. So don't suppress. It will come out. It will. It'll always come out one way or another. Give yourself that time to get out what you need to get out, but then don't live in that space. Make sure that you pick yourself up again and move on. So I hope that was helpful for everybody. I really hope that did. I'm glad to see there's a few users here saying that it's okay and normal. Yes, feel the feelings. Absolutely. I could lay in bed all day, not healthy. I have to get up and continue with my passion and God. Yes, with God on my mind, He loves peace and comfort mindset. Absolutely. Shaylin, it shows me, I'm going to actually, but I'm sure that's you. I'm not sure, but it just says Facebook user. I'm suspecting it's Shaylin. but when I read it, it doesn't tell me who it is. So if you guys give StreamYard permission, I'm sorry, apparently I came out again. My internet is just all over the place. So I think I'm going to end it with that since my internet is not cooperating with us. Have a great week, everybody. And let me know if you send me messages if you guys have any comments on this live. And I think we'll probably, you can't hear me. I don't know why. Can you hear me now? Okay. I don't know what is going on, but I'm going to end it with that. Message me if this was something that resonated with you. Let me know how you're feeling. I know this was a heavy subject. I think I'll probably re-record into the podcast since I have a feeling this is not going, the video isn't going to turn out pretty with all the problems I've had. So we'll probably re-record so you guys have a way to hear this again later. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.